Imagine opening your banking app and discovering that the company behind it also commands an army, collects taxes, appoints rulers, and controls entire provinces. That sounds impossible today. But more than 2 centuries ago, the British East India Company became exactly that, a corporation that learned how to behave like a state. The story began in 1600 when Queen Elizabeth I granted a group of English merchants a royal charter to trade with Asia. At first, the company wanted spices, textiles, tea, and profit. It established trading posts along the Indian coast, including Surat, Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta. These places were called factories, although they were really fortified commercial settlements. For much of the 17th century, the company operated inside the powerful Mughal Empire. It negotiated with local authorities, paid customs duties, and competed with Dutch, Portuguese, and French merchants. But during the 18th century, Mughal authority weakened. Regional rulers became more independent. European rivalries spread into India, and the company saw an opportunity. Bengal was the greatest prize. It was one of the richest provinces in the world, famous for textiles, agriculture, and busy river trade. In 1756, the young Nawab of Bengal, Suraj-ud-Dowlah, captured Calcutta after a dispute with the company. The British returned under Robert Clive and prepared to remove him. Clive did not rely on military strength alone. He secretly negotiated with Mir Jafar, one of Siraj's senior commanders, promising to support him as the next Nawab. On the 23rd of June, 1757, the two sides met at Plassey. The numbers looked absurd. Siraj commanded roughly 50,000 troops and around 50 guns. Clive had only about 3,000 men, most of them Indian sepoys serving the company. But a large part of Siraj's army, including Mir Jafar's forces, refused to fight. Then heavy rains soaked the battlefield. The company protected its gunpowder. Much of the opposing artillery became ineffective. The battle lasted only a few hours. Siraj's army collapsed, and Mir Jafar was installed as Nawab. Plassey was not the conquest of all India, but it gave the company political influence, enormous payments, and access to Bengal's wealth. A trading corporation had discovered that controlling rulers could be more profitable than negotiating with them. The next decisive step came after the Battle of Buxar in 1764. In 1765, the Mughal emperor granted the company the Diwani, the right to collect revenue in Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. This changed everything. Indian taxes could now finance company administration, purchase Indian goods, and maintain the armies used for further expansion. The company had created a self-reinforcing machine. Revenue paid for soldiers. Soldiers gained territory. New territory produced more revenue. Its armies grew, largely made up of Indian sepoys commanded by European officers. Through wars, treaties, alliances, and pressure on local rulers, company control expanded across the subcontinent, but the company was never completely independent of Britain. Its officials became notorious for corruption, while warfare and financial mismanagement pushed the corporation into crisis. Parliament intervened in 1773 and gradually increased government supervision. What emerged was an unusual partnership. Private shareholders sought profit, while the British state protected and regulated an expanding empire. By 1856, the company governed much of India directly or through allied princely states. Then, in 1857, a major uprising began among company soldiers and spread across northern and central India. After the rebellion was suppressed, the British government decided that a commercial corporation could no longer rule such a vast population. In 1858, control of India passed from the company to the British Crown. The East India Company survived on paper for a few more years and was formally dissolved in 1874. So, did a company conquer India? Not alone. not in a single battle, and not against one united country. It succeeded by exploiting political division, recruiting Indian soldiers, controlling tax revenue, and receiving support from the British state. Its greatest weapon was not simply the musket. It was the combination of commerce, finance, diplomacy, and military force. The East India Company began by asking permission to trade. It ended by deciding who would rule.